Welcome to the Canterbury Hockey Coaches Box. I'm your host Sanjay Gander, and today we have Vantage BlackSticks Women's head coach Phil Burrows. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you in here in the Canterbury Coaches Box podcast. So, Phil, look, debuted as a 19-year-old in Jan 2000, played 16 years of international hockey. Along with that, 343 caps and 151 goals. What a phenomenal career. Phil, looking back on it now, what were some of the highlights through that period?
There were a few. I guess the first one, game one, that's always a highlight. Getting to walk out the first time, put the shirt on. Even though we lost, it was still a really good moment. I guess Com Games in 2002 was where we kind of shifted the dial a little bit around the country of we're doing pretty well here. That's probably where we started to just take off a little bit. We were silver and then beating Pakistan for the first time in a long time, which was a big moment for us. And then, of course, the Athens Olympics, first Olympics, was a massive highlight, both personally because I had a very good tournament, and also the team had a great tournament, finishing sixth, which actually got us into the Champions Trophy. Ended up in Lahore later in the year, playing in front of big crowds in Pakistan, which was also pretty special. Olympics, of course, great to go to, but one of my favourite tournaments was a World Cup in The Hague 2014. So in The Hague, Holland, they put a hockey pitch down in a football stadium, packed house every day, and it was just a hockey party. Just so many hockey people there, just loving it. Spent the whole day there. It was just a party atmosphere. It's just one of those tournaments you'll never forget. Of course, I'll never forget the Olympics. You never will. But that World Cup was something else, and really excited. Next year it's the same again. It's going to be in Holland and Belgium, and they'll do a great job. So, hoping we can qualify for that event, which will be really special for the group.
Yeah, brilliant. And yeah, obviously in 2004 you were the top goal scorer at the Olympic Games.
Top field goal scorer.
Field goal scorer.
Which is cool. Field goals should be worth 2, right? So that means on the top. Yeah. No, I think I was even with, there was one other guy. We were both on 7. I'm trying to work out who it was. It wasn't Jamie Dwyer. He was 6. There was one other guy that was on 7. So we were equal top goal. I think it might have been Gagan Singh from India, if I recall correctly. And I think Taka Takama was on the top, flicking for Holland. I think he flicked 10. But yeah, of course, love scoring field goals. Yeah. It's always good fun. It was always chasing that feeling of hitting the goal, and it also gives you, obviously, your teams wants those goals to take some scoreboard pressure off.
Totally. Look, you scored 151 goals in your time, so pretty amazing statistics. The top goal scorer in New Zealand, and look, you did something different. You put the ball in the net, but what were some of the things that, if you look back at why you scored so many goals, what were some of the things that, what was the mindset? Yeah. What were the things that really made you set you above the rest?
I think, so there's one guy trying to chase me down recently, Cy Child. He nearly got there, noting he played a lot more less games. The difference between me and Cy is he could score from anywhere and was probably more technically could finish a lot better. I was probably more those ones that was a real competitive and desperate to score from everywhere. Probably a bit more of a grinder in that 7-yard zone. Hand on the ground, happy to get hit. A lot of back post goals. At one point, the tomahawk shot or the backhand shot was coming into play more and more, and probably wasn't defended as well as it is now. So I guess I scored a few that way, and I really put a lot of work in trying to hit my tom right. I probably went to a point where I went too far, and that's all I was doing, and forgot about the forehand shot. But I think one big thing that you don't see in players these days is really desperate to score and making sure you're getting to those scoring zones every time, because it always rebounds in those spots that I could have been there if I just run the extra mile, the extra meter, and I was always willing to be pretty desperate to score goals.
Yeah, awesome. And look, I was lucky enough to talk to a couple of players that you've played with, and they gave me some words about Phil Burrows, the hockey player, and some of these words were passionate, driven, relentless, high energy, set high expectations, and another one, good enough wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So when you hear those words, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. I think those words, obviously they make you feel good because you want your teammates to say that about you. Because as a player, you want your other teammates to do that as well. You want them to be like putting everything in, and you don't have to worry about that play. You don't have to lift their intensity. And if everyone's doing that, you can imagine what you get out of the group. Often you see in a group where it's quite a flat session, and you do all your best work outside the game, right? Like if you're doing training like you're going to play, working on all your technical stuff, but being desperate, keeping the level as high as possible, driving the intensity, you'll bring that on match day as well. And that's often the difference. Those ones who are highly talented but not bringing the intensity and drive and consistency, those are the ones that kind of fall off the radar a little bit.
Yeah, sort of flake away.
Yeah.
So where did this mindset, this stuff come from? Like, who was it? Were your parents a big influence?
Yeah, probably Dad was a big driver of that. Yeah. But I think we just always had a really competitive environment. Whatever sport I play, I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And you get a bit of a sook when you don't win, and that was me. It's actually coming out my toddler at the moment. I see that a lot in him. Like, if I ever say I win to him, he's like steaming. So yeah. I love to win, love to keep it competitive, and I love to leave a game or leave a session like I actually got something out of it. Like, I'm not a huge fan of sometimes going to a session and like it's low key, or those aren't my favourite sessions.
Right,
like, I love getting in the car and driving away and say, man, I got something out of that. Like, my body's sore, but it's that good sore.
Yeah,
like, it's that soreness of I worked hard, and that's that I'm going up and I'm going up and I'm going up. And sometimes you'll get those sessions and you're quite frustrated that you didn't get enough out of it. And I used to just get home, park the car, and do some sprints around the block just to make sure that I got something out of it. Or just drive to the gym and hit the treadmill just to make sure that I got something out of it.
Yeah, nice. There's another little piece in here. Look, I talked to Brad Shaw, and he mentioned, Phil was never happy, and he needed to make sure every box was ticked. And I guess, those are probably the things, and I don't think it was like you were never happy as such playing. You were, that was your favourite place, but it was I always wanted more. There was always something to strive for.
Yeah. Like, I knew I couldn't get it, but I was always chasing perfection.
Yep.
I know you never get it. Like, there's never, ever a perfect game, eh? Like, I never, ever played a perfect game, but I was always going for it. Like, people always say to me, they say, oh, remember that game you played against Pakistan, semi-final Commonwealth, you scored 4 goals, what a day. If you watch that game back, I was one of the worst players on the ground, but I just happened to had 4 good moments in that match. My other 25 moments were horrendous. If I watch that game back, I don't want to watch it back because I was so bad.
Yeah.
But I had 4 moments in that game when everyone perceives, he was the best player on the ground. It's incorrect.
Yeah.
It's incorrect.
No,
and when I watch it back, you'll be surprised. The best player on the ground was Bevan Hari.
Oh, yes, yep.
He was the best player on the ground that day. I swear to you. If you watch it back, he didn't do much wrong. I did a lot wrong that day, but I did 4 good things, which helped us.
Nah, this is pretty cool. And look, I guess, like you can see that coming out in yourself as well. So, look, we're thinking about these playing things or these things that come in through your playing career. What have you taken from your playing career now and brought into your coaching career?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the level high, the standards, like having high standards, especially in the physical area at the moment with the girls group. Having come into the program, it was probably sitting a little bit low where it need to be, and it's still a work in progress, but one thing I'm happy to say is it is progressing. It's one of the things I will always be is you need to be technically and physically sound when you get to the tournament phase, because once you get there, you've only got a certain amount of time before you play game 1. You can't change yourself physically and technically in that 5 to 7 days or whatever the build-up is. Yep. Like, I went to the Nations Cup recently with the girls. We were only there for 4 days before we had game 1. We can't change physical and technically in 4 days. You just can't do it.
Yep.
You need a good chunk of time. 6-8 weeks, you can probably change some things. 4 days, you're where you're at. You know, so I was always, I'm trying to bring that to the girls a lot, and that was me as well. I wanted to be technically really good. My receiving, that was one massive thing I would always focus on. So there's all my time and space, right? I receive well, there's my time and space to get my shot away or whatever I need to do. And I wanted to be the fittest. I had to be the fittest.
Yeah.
If I wasn't the fittest, I wasn't happy, and I'd go away, and I needed to, every fitness test we did for the Black Sticks, I needed to finish first. That was my mindset. You have to be the number one, and if you're not, the next one you are.
Yeah, cool.
And
yeah,
I don't reckon there's too many I missed.
Nah, and when we look at your career, 16 years at international level, you know, 10, 11 years playing over in Europe or in the hoof class, you barely missed a match in that period of time, and I'm guessing that's come down to your physical conditioning and your physical preparation.
Yeah, there were definitely niggles throughout that you had to work through. I know there's a lot of talk about like hamstring awareness and that kind of awareness. I tell you what, if that was around when I was playing, I would have missed a lot. There was always kind of, oh yeah, probably not great, but I'll just push through this, and I managed to push through. These days, you'd probably stepped aside for a match to, you know, get you ready for the next one. But it just wasn't really the mindset back in the day. I hate to say the words back in the day, but, you know, back in the day, it was just, nah, you can push through. And that's probably why I played more than I should have. There probably were some ones I should have tapped out of, but didn't. I'd certainly had some injuries throughout my career. There's no doubt late in the career, herniated disc in my back. That was a pretty heavy one. You know, broke my leg at a tournament, went in the wrong side, you get cracked across. Luckily there wasn't too much after that, so I could recover, and I didn't miss too much. But hamstrings and calves and shoulders and jabs and all those kind of things, like your body goes through it in hockey, and people probably hockey players understand how much your body has to go through in that amount of career, and how it kind of affects after hockey life, like, you know, I can still feel that, like, hamstring I tore, you know, in Holland in 2014. It's still there a little bit. I can still feel my shoulder on occasion because I, you know, tore my rotator cuff just before I went into the Athens Olympics. You know, I've torn my calves. So, like, all those little things, they just kind of, you can feel them. You know, I broke my finger in where were we, in China, 2006, and it still cracks today. I can still feel it. So you've got all these sores, you've got all these wounds you have to deal with after your career.
Nah, it's pretty cool to think, you know, all those years you obviously played highly at the international level, but you did it, you know, while still dealing with a few niggles. And I guess that's the real mindset. You were like, no, I want to be playing, I want to be out there competing, because I don't want to give it up.
I guess the other thing I'm trying to bring to the group as well, like, apart from the technically and physically, like, if you're not ticking those things off, it's really difficult to play the game. Obviously the mental is a massive thing, which I'm not probably the person to educate or that, but I understand how important it is, so we kind of outsource that. The other thing I'm trying to bring to the group is about moving on from an era.
Right.
Like, it's a real big thing, right? You see an era, and I want the girls to be comfortable making errors, because I want them to make an error trying to do the right thing. So, you know, if they're supposed to be in that gap receiving the ball, I want them in there receiving it. If they're happy and they're brave enough to do it, and they make an error, so be it. But the opposite to that is not being in that moment and not wanting to get in there and receive that ball. That's probably what I don't want to see.
Yeah, so the attitude, right?
Yeah, attitude, and then just the reaction to the error.
Yeah.
How do they react to that error? Is it just grind out, win the ball back, and get up?
Yep.
Or is it throw the hands in the air? Is it look at the umpire? Is it whatever it is? I want to see, like, a really good reaction to that moment.
Yeah.
And then you know you got a good one.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be errors, right?
Yeah,
There's going to be errors. Like,
so it's almost like
hockey's just transition all the time. Transition all the time. Because, you know, error, ball goes over the baseline, sideline, mistrap, whatever, tackle, everything. So, you know.
Yeah, it's the ability to stay in the moment, all right, what's next?
move
Versus
on.
Hey, I'm looking for an excuse here.
That's it. Move on. No one, just move on. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, I've heard a story about you, and maybe this has come through your playing career, but you've got an athlete who really wants to improve their fitness, and you're like, right, I'm coming out to run the fitness test with you.
Yeah.
And then you were out there doing the fitness test with them, and you're like, right, we're getting a 14.5 today. Right, next week we're going 14.6, and you wanted to keep pushing them.
Yeah.
What makes you want to get out there and do a fitness test now?
Yeah, the fitness testing's a funny thing. I reckon a lot of people get so tangled up with the fitness test mentally Like, they don't sometimes go out and train it. So I've got an athlete at the moment who's sitting a little lower. And like you said, we did the same thing the other day. Start here and just get used to the test and just add on. It's actually a good little running session as well. Like the current yo-yo, that's the big test going around the world at the moment. It's actually not a bad little running session as well. So for those who struggle with the mental side of it and the anxiety of doing a test, just go out and do it. Get used to it. Because often when's the last time you did it? Oh, last time we did it, like 3 months ago or 6 weeks ago. Like, why don't you just add it to your warm-up? Not to maximal.
Yes.
Like, if I know my maximal's 19.5, I'm not going to do that in my warm-up. But I know I can get to 16.1 easy.
Yep.
Takes me 7 minutes.
Yeah,
and I'm warmed up and I'm ready to go to training, and I've ticked off practicing my yo-yo. Yep. So it's a real easy thing to do. We run the academy when I was over in Australia coaching for a few years, and we made the kids do it every session. Turn up, we're just going to go to level 14.1 and there's your warm-up. And that's it. And they just got used to the test.
Yep.
We obviously maxed them on day one and then did that throughout and then maxed them at the end. And, you know, we had 100% PBs. Of course we did, because they understood how it worked. And they improved, and that was it. And then there was no anxiety for it because they knew all about it.
Yeah, I guess they felt comfortable doing it because they had done it so many times.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just,
And some don't have that. They can just go out and do it because they're like, they can just get through it, but there's others that don't, and that's just probably the cheat code.
Yeah, all right. Cool. All right. Well, I'm keen to jump into some coaching stuff.
Yeah.
And look, Phil, you jumped into coaching the Vantage BlackSticks Women's team a couple of years ago, and it was a pretty quick start for you. You had to go to an Olympic qualifier and stuff. No doubt you would have learnt plenty from there, and now 2 years on, you're obviously continuing to be involved. What has been learnt from the first experience?
Yeah.
And what sort of things? Yeah, I guess probably that's probably the question. What have you learnt in that period of time?
There's obviously been a lot of learnings because it was my first time in charge of an international hockey team, so it's a lot different. When I came into the role, obviously it was completely changed into a decentralised model, which has been challenging in itself, like having players based all around the country, not training together often. Those who know hockey know our depth's not that great around the country, well, not as good as it could be. So there's a little bit of struggle there with training environment. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges, and we've probably only just started to get that going. Like the training centres around the country, they're just starting to tick a few boxes, and you can probably see we've added the PHL now, which makes a massive difference. My biggest challenge at the moment is making sure we get the girls to day one when we travel away at the airport, that they are technically and physically ready for that tournament. Yep. That's probably the biggest challenge. I work a lot online with athletes, so there's a lot of conversations, whether it's text or phone or video call. There's a lot of that going on. Players are based around the world, so just managing players around the world can be pretty tough. And I had a tough first 12 months, right? I thrown straight in, decentralised. I didn't think the group was anywhere near where they needed to be on the fitness-wise, like anywhere near it, which always gets you on the back foot when you play top international hockey. We're in the Pro League at that point, and that's obviously a tough tournament. It's one of the best teams. You're travelling around the world. We managed to stay in that tournament by... We got a victory against Argentina. Very lucky that day, but we got it. We managed to beat Germany in a shootout, which we had a lot of... I think there was a lot of talk in the paper before I arrived about the BlackSticks shootout. They kept on losing shootouts.
Yeah, from previous Olympics.
Just for context, we're now 3 in a row, right? So we win that one, the last 2 Nations Cup we won. So unfortunately, we're probably due to lose one. So anyway, we've gone 3 in a row for those who read the paper. And like kind of the last little bit, and I guess that led up to Nations Cup just recently. I know LA is where it is to be, and I saw some more talent around the country, like talent that I really liked, and there's some good girls around that I think we probably missed in the past. But it's also, we're not seeing them enough because we didn't have a PHL. Yep. We didn't have a 21. So where do you see them? But now you have junior Premier Hockey League under 21s. Now you have PHL, so and NHC as well. And I viewed all of those, and then all of a sudden you've got this pool of players. And you're like, you know what? There's some good talent in this country.
Yeah.
It's just, you just got to get around and see it because we weren't seeing it often enough. So that was another challenge. But no, the group we've got at the moment, really happy. Like, we're really smacking the physical space.
Nice.
And we're shifting the average. We've shifted that. As anyone knows, that the yo-yo, we're trying to get our average to a 19.5.
Yep.
And at the moment, we're probably sitting in the mid to high 18s. So we've progressed that from when I first arrived. We were probably in the 17s, which is really low for international hockey. Especially given I know the Chinese hockey team, for example, they push for 2021. Yep. Which is really high. So we wanted to get into that. We're fit enough, but we're also technically very good. And then when you win some games, But if you can't keep up physically, I know I keep going on about it, but often some athletes think they can, but that's week in, week out. They play on the weekend, they play on the weekend. To win medals and win thing, you got to play 5 and 7.
Yeah, you got to
play game, day off game. Like, you got to back up.
Yeah.
And if you're in a 17, you're going to struggle at game 3.
Yep.
You're going to fall off the cliff.
Totally.
Because there's this international hockey levels and the speed's just so high, your body just won't cope. Yeah. So that's kind of where I think the mindset might be a little bit. No, I'm fit enough. I play well. It's like, well, international hockey, tournament hockey is way different than PHL game on a Saturday.
Yep.
PHL game on a Saturday. A few days to recover,
No,
it's just different. So
you talked a little bit about the decentralized program. So I'm pretty keen to talk a little bit about that and how does that affect your training when you're running sessions? So you're obviously down here in Christchurch at the moment. Yep. Like, how do you shape your trainings? Because it's a totally different when you've got the athletes day in, day out, where you can really hone in on some technical skills, work more of a periodization.
Yeah.
But now we're in a decentralized model. So how well, I guess first question is, how do you shape your training sessions when you do come into these little hubs?
Yeah, so massive change, of course. First and foremost, we've got physical who sits above it. So our head of athletic, head of S&C, Nick Webb. So he puts out kind of the loading for the block. This is a red week. This is a green week, so highly technical. This is a deload week or whatever it is. So we kind of know how heavy that session should be. And given being around hockey a long time, you can actually put a session together and you can know, that's a red session, that's an orange session, that's a green session. So from that's kind of how you get the loading for how that session will run. And just the detail, so all the girls who are in the squad, they're connected with me weekly.
Yes.
They all have technical stuff in their plan, so they know that these are the things that they're focusing on. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, and she won't mind me talking about it, Olivia Shannon, she is our number one. She gets our number one GSO. She creates plenty of GSOs, but not finishing enough. So in her plan, it's a lot about goal scoring through this block. I know she's fit enough. I know she's fast enough. Technically, she's good. She creates a lot of opportunities. She eliminates. Finishing is just the final piece that she needs. So at the moment, that's what her focus is through this block.
Yep.
She's always going to work on the other stuff, but as a heightened focus, it's that. And all the girls have those, nice. 2 or 3, not 5 or 6 or 7. There's too many. Just a couple of things that will really elevate your game. And when I come into RT, so I'm not on the pitch as much as I would like, but I'm trying to get on the ground in front of most of the girls. So obviously based in Auckland, so there's a group of girls there, and the other probably main group at the moment is in Christchurch. That's where the spread is. Auckland and Christchurch cover most of the athletes at the moment. Hence why I'm here this week to see some athletes, see how they're progressing. But if I'm putting a session together like this morning, I want to see something technically. So we did a ball movement exercise this morning, for example, but it's based on how the Black Sticks play. So the passing patterns of how we actually play. It's not just balls out, cones out, follow your pass. There's none of that going on. It's repetition of players who are playing in the position they'll play, but based on the concepts that we want. Like this morning, for example, we're highly into getting the ball to help side really quickly, like really trying to get there quickly to use that space. So that was one thing we did this morning. The next part, you're normally going to your competitive part, decision making. Did a real kind of simple decision making exercise this morning that had added goal scoring, because that's probably another one that's massive on our radar at the moment. We create enough, we don't score enough, and physically we want to shift. And if we can shift those two things, we'll win a lot more games. And then I'll normally, finish with match play and some corners. That's probably just a standard session that you can put together. And anyone kind of listening who's kind of, umming and ahhing about what they put together, just, keep some, a passing exercise based on how you play.
Yep.
Competitive, whatever that is, get some match play and get your set plays in, and then you're probably delivering a pretty good session. And if it's just technical, obviously you're doing just technical stuff. If it's passing, it's goal shooting, whatever. And if you really need to ramp it up, you're probably adding some conditioning on top of your session. But we try to do that outside the hockey, because we don't want to bring them, because we have them limited time on the pitch. We don't want to run them on the pitch and then have limited time for the hockey. So they do need to tick that off in their own time, and they need to be held accountable, and we hold them by account by testing more often than not. Yeah,
nice. And you did touch on a bit about clarity throughout the country. So is there any other little systems that you've created to enable the clarity for the coaches who are delivering in the RTE, just to ensure that, I guess, the principles of play you're trying to really focus on at that national level is delivered through the country?
Yeah. So we just kind of work on Microsoft Teams connected through there. They're all connected in a channel.
Yep.
Or we have the prioritization plan of, this is a red week, this is an orange week, this is green. There's always going to be little changes for athletes based on what they're going on. It's impossible to look after the whole country on one plan, because everyone does things differently. Some might not go on a tour, some might go on a tour. So the next week probably needs to be green, whereas this athlete needs to stay on it. So there has to be the smarts in the training environments to do that, and do that on the fly. Otherwise you have 28,000 spreadsheets for everyone, and it's just so difficult to cover the country. So we need to have obviously smart ones, and then obviously they have access to game plans, ways of play. I share all that. It's not like we're hiding anything from the rest of the country, and we're pretty, we know there won't be any sharing going on, because we trust the people in our environments.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Okay, cool. And look, you obviously work for Hockey Victoria as the high performance athlete and coach manager. So you spent a fair bit of time over there, and just want to talk a little bit about the Australian system. What things do they do over there? Are they still operating with a centralised model or a decentralised model? And what sort of things are happening, I guess, in their hockey culture that you really loved and now potentially have brought back over here to New Zealand? Because they've been super successful for a long period of time at the international level on both men's and women's.
So they are highly with the physical. They push that massively. And I guess if you describe them, they're just aggressive attacking mindset is probably the best way to describe them. If you look at the Hockeyroos at the moment, they are a team that loves to press and press and press as much as possible, and very kind of direct in their play. The Kookaburras not going as well as they had in the past. They're probably just a little bit off with a few players, but again, if you play in their club system or watch any of their stuff going on, it's all, focused on aggressive attacking intent. Receive to play forward, play forward to the contest, make it a 50-50, very contestable. And I was in Melbourne, of course. It's a massive AFL town. So they're always talking about, win the contest, fight for that ball. So, really aggressive attacking mindset, and with a high emphasis on being physically fit, so they can run over teams. And the Kookaburras in the past, we know when they went through that purple patch, and I was unfortunately playing when they were doing that, they were just running over teams with their physical nature. They're just not doing that at the moment, because other teams have caught up in that space. They've put more into sports science, whereas Aussie were probably ahead of them in that point, whereas other countries have caught up now, so they match them.
It'll be interesting to see how they track now. Obviously, Mark taking over the men. So that's going to be a different, an adjustment period. But we know what Mark was able to do with the women's team here. Unbelievable player. Super successful. Helped us, I guess, New Zealand women's team, achieve probably the highest ranking that we were ever able to achieve. So it'll be interesting to watch that.
I certainly look back on that, great coach. And I also look at how when that was happening, people have to understand that when he had them for 200 days a year. And in 1 year, 365 days, there were 50 tests played by the BlackSticks Women. 50 test matches.
Wow,
if I look at my calendar now, I'm like, I do not even know how they fit 50 in. Like, if I reckon I had my girls for 200 days and we played 50 tests, I reckon I'd have them pretty good, Nick.
Yeah,
I reckon they'd be going pretty good. Like, that's a lot. And I honestly reckon, I said this to a few people, if you look back at all the records of test matches in a year, I reckon it's a world record. Yeah. I don't reckon any other country would have played 50 test matches in a calendar year. It's incredible to get that in.
No, it is. It's pretty phenomenal. We had CL, Chris Leslie, in the podcast recently, and he talked about, one of the things that did help them be super successful during that period was they had regular matches against the Dutch, the Argentinians. It was constant. So that enabled them to keep up there. So I guess now you've got the challenge of working with the constraints of not having that.
It was also a little bit kind of, I guess, more professional because they had that Owen Glenn was helping them out a lot, so they was able to give the players a little bit more funding, just to help them offset didn't have to work as much, a bit more comfortable in that street. It's of course it's hockey, right? It's never going to be crazy in New Zealand, never going to get paid crazy amounts, and if people think that's going to happen, I just can't see it, like we're always going to have to grind a little bit, and find our own way. And I guess my message to those who are aspiring hockey players and whatever, like, you don't get to do it for too long. And I know there's a lot of talk about balance at the moment, balancing everything, but if you want to be really successful at hockey, you just have to sometimes just balance a bit more for hockey. And just know that when you get out of it, you're in your 30s and it's starting, you will miss it so much, and you'll be like, man, I wish I'd probably just put a bit more into it.
Yeah, sacrifice a few more things.
But I can work for another, 50 years or whatever it is, but I can't do this anymore because international hockey, for some, I was lucky enough to do it for a longer time than most, but some only get to do it for 5 years.
Giving you all while you're there, right?
Yeah. Well, just put a bit more onus on the hockey, and maybe just give up something a little bit for a little while. I don't want to go too crazy here and say,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Totally.
I mean?
No,
sometimes I think they're just trying to balance too much. And in quick succession. I want to play for New Zealand. I want to get my degree on time, and I want to, It's like just if you want to play international hockey, just give yourself a bit more time to play it well.
Yeah, and as we know now, man, people are living for so much longer. The science is out there. It's there's plenty of things to do later on.
Well, Ronaldo's hitting goals at 40, isn't he?
That's it, the beauty of it. Hey, so look, recently Nations Cup. Wow, what a result! Pretty awesome. Earlier in the year, to win our first ever Nations Cup. And you did it with a pretty young side, but man, you had some highs and lows throughout the tournament. So keen to talk a bit about that and what it was like on tour with the girls, a young group that some of them had never, been to an international tournament. First game against Korea, you're 3-1 down. What's going through your head? I made a decision to take a younger group away, probably forecasting towards, LA even. And because there isn't a heap of opportunity or a heap of international matches, like this year we're going to play 12 internationals, and I talked before about they played 50 in the calendar year. We're going to play 12. I need to give them opportunity and see them in that environment. So some, I guess, maybe they said I was taking a bit too much of a risk with players. I was pretty confident in the group I picked. I knew they were fit. I knew they had high talent. I knew they were inexperienced. But you can't get experience without getting experience, right? So I was happy to throw them in. It wasn't a tournament we were going to win. We were going there our goal wasn't to win it. Our goal was to progress this group through to the next one and through to the next one with the World Cup in LA in our sights. So by the time we get there, we've got a group that's high level. The average age of our group, once we get to LA, is probably when they should be peaking. That's kind of what we have in our forecasting. The most impressive part about that tournament was the group I took was highly inexperienced. They were the second inexperienced team there. Japan was the bottom. We were next. Chile was by far the most experienced with 100 plus average. Wow.
Ireland was 85 average,
Yep.
and we were about 24 average caps, or some not even at 10. And the other most impressive part is when you play international hockey and you're behind on the scoreboard, it's tough to fight back. And to having a young group that could actually do that, and I was even so confident at three-quarter time. I remember it. We went out the back, and I said to the girls, I know you can score 5 or 6 against this group. I know you can do it. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to stick to the plan. And they stuck to the plan. Often teams deviate.
Yep.
They're like, nah, we're behind. I'm going to dribble. I'll do it myself.
Yeah,
they never deviated.
Yep.
They set the press up correctly. They were falling back when I asked them to sit back, even though we're chasing the game, because I knew we could counter Korea.
Utilise the space.
Yep. So we were 3-1 down, fought back. It was 4-2, still down, fought back to 5-4. We even had a goal disallowed, if you remember.
Yes.
One of our players ran across the face in front of the first runner. We scored to go ahead.
That's right,
It got disallowed, which was correct. And then we got a stroke late on to win it. And then obviously went up against Ireland, lost that in a tight battle. Ireland, who beat us last Nations Cup, they took the identical team. Not one player. The only player they added was their 103 game goalkeeper that was injured for the last one. Otherwise, it was the same team
group.
up against my young guns, I'll call them.
Yeah.
So we lost that game, which was probably fair. They probably played a little bit better. Then we had to win Scotland, again down 1-0, came back 3-1 into the semi against Chile. You know, the hosts, packed house.
Yeah.
Most experienced team there.
Would have been a super passionate crowd too, right?
If you look at the stats, we absolutely belted them. We had 12 penalty corners. We scored our first one. So we're 1 for 1. I was like, it's going to be a good day. Then we went 0 for 11, which is not a good day. But one thing we do have, and I spoke to you about it before, was we have, I believe, the best shootout goalkeeper on the planet.
Yeah.
I think she is the best.
Yep.
So I said over the mic to my assistant coach, I said, don't worry, we are in the box seat in the shootout. And we deserved to win that game. Even though we had to go through shootout, we deserved to win a normal time because how dominant we were. We just couldn't finish, which is, one of those things. And then we get in the final against Ireland, which is a big one. They are putting in the most experienced team there because they want the Pro League spot.
Yes.
That's why they put them, because I spoke to them after the fact. We put our best team possible, our most experienced, because we want the Pro League spot. We took a different path because we probably knew we wouldn't take that spot, given it's so expensive to go on, so that we could take a younger group. And I can tell you for a fact, even if you watch it back, the first half, we absolutely gave them a bath. We were the best team by a country mile. Third quarter, we were starting to battle a bit. Fourth quarter, we were horrible. But in the fourth quarter, we still had 2 massive chances to win it, and we couldn't finish. And again, those moments, like if you can take those moments, win games, but it takes off all the scoreboard pressure. And then again, into the shootout, I said the same thing over the mic. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're in the box seat. We've got the best goalkeeper at shootouts in the world. We're in the box seat. And the rest is history. The girls got over the line, and I was so happy for them because we're playing a little bit differently this year, and I didn't want us to not go so well, and then there's doubt in how we're doing things. So that was probably one of the most pleasing things for me to make to have proof in the pudding that this is how we're doing things.
Yeah, what we're doing is actually
doing
on the right
things.
track.
We're a passing team.
Yep.
We're a running team. Yeah, we're going to run. We're going to pass, and we're going to do it over and over and over and over again.
So you actually started, I thought, when obviously watching it back here, I thought you started really well in your penalty corners.
Yeah.
Going super well.
Yeah,
and then we get back into the tournament.
Yeah.
What had changed?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not too sure if you can answer that
Chile,
question,
the 1 for 12. I've got to give Chile a rap, eh? If you want to see some PC defensive running, watch that.
Right. Okay.
Very, very good. They mix it up. They run a 2-2. They run a 3-run. Very unpredictable how they do it. Very good running line. They were like, if you watch PCD back, that they were the best there. It's one of those things, we're really trying to develop that part of our game, especially drag flicking from the top. We don't have a lot of those in the country, and we want 2 or 3 that are pushing world class, right? We want them at least pushing it, or at least just down a level from world class. We just don't have that yet, and it's something we're continuing to push around the country.
Yeah.
We need to develop the skill because it wins you games.
Yeah, it does.
Wins you games.
Definitely does. And, obviously when we look at our men's side, we've been pretty blessed with a couple of really good drag flickers that have enabled us to, compete at a high level. So, when Anita Pump was in our women's team, that set us apart quite well. It'll be awesome to see some great drag flickers coming through, and no doubt there's some that are working on their craft in the background. So, pretty exciting to watch. We've talked a little bit about the Nations Cup, but if you could nail, 3 things or 3 highlights that really came from that excite you now moving forward, you may have touched on some of them, but what would they be?
Probably an attacking intent from a few of us. I reckon it was a lot better where we're in transition. We were so much better. The actual off-field vibe of the group, really, really good, no? Like really connected, good group of girls, all with the same kind of passion and keenness for the game. Those are probably the 2 massive ones. And I guess the last one is the ability to fight back. So when you have the ability to fight back in games, you're actually mentally pretty strong, eh? Like you dig in and you get things done. And I know there's chat around the traps about, it was a tier two tournament, but it's not that impressive. But you got to look at the group where they're at, and fighting back in matches, you still have to win those games. Like I obviously hear some stuff in the hockey world. Like a lot of stuff gets back to me, right? Because I know I'm connected to a lot of people, and I hear those comments, and I'm just like, it's just such a negative comment. And I do find there's quite a bit of negativity around the hockey trap. So we need to be more positive about our group. We're not going to win everything. We're not going to win everything. Like they're crazy if we think we are. It's like we've got to get the girls back to where they were. Okay, okay, that would be great. Give me 200 days and 50 games a year then. And then let's see if I can change some things. We don't have that, so we have to do things another way now. We're in it's not easy to fight against those top nations who are basically professionals.
Yes, they are.
So we're trying to match them in a decentralized model where our training environment is diluted. It's not easy. People have to understand that. That's how big that kind of Nations Cup win is, based on how we're doing it at the moment. And we've only touched the surface of decentralized. Yes. It'll get better and better. It's still 5 years away from being really good. But so that's probably the things I take away from that. And there's some good ones there. There's some talent there. They'll surprise a few people.
Definitely. And I love how you talk about, like, actually let's try and shift the paradigm.
Yeah,
because we often, everyone's always saying, the standard's down and, we're not as good as we were. Well, actually, come on, let's shift that and actually think about what we're actually really good at. So
the comments are, you've picked the wrong team, you go away and win it. It was a 2-tier tournament, don't worry about it. I was like, mate, what do you want? Like, we've got to win those games. Like, now we're eligible for the Pro League. Eligible.
It's almost the old, what do they call it in New Zealand, the old tall poppy syndrome. Like everyone wants to knock someone down when they've done well. Because we expect that, we have to be humble. But actually, come on, let's build them up. It's just going to help build the confidence. And, we can, I guess, as New Zealanders, we've always prided ourselves on being the underdog and actually fighting above our weight. It's in our DNA. And, let's use that as our strength.
And I guess that's probably another thing for coaching, Like, try and pump your players' tires up more. Like, show them the good stuff. You've always got to show them a little bit of stuff that we need to work on and develop. Don't single out, silly little things, technical errors, Don't show that stuff. We know they're not trying to mistrap a ball, but show the good stuff and pump them up so that they know this is good. Look at this. Do that again. Do that again. And if you've got a heap of bad stuff, just, stuff that's probably not so great, maybe show a couple.
Well, no, that's good. And I think that's a real good message to send to our people on the broadcast, or people listening to the broadcast around, one of the biggest jobs of a coach is actually to instill belief in the athlete to do something they never thought was possible. If we can build our athletes up, and often you get the athletes who think, I can't actually do that. But the coach's job is actually trying to instill that belief so they they actually can do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a coach, sometimes that's actually the most rewarding thing. When you look at that player who doubted themselves, then they give you that little look and you're just like, wow, never thought I could do that. Man, that now we're striking gold.
Yeah, and you'll get more out of them, man. You'll get more out of them.
So,
yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. All right, that's awesome. Look, I'm keen to think about the future now and the future of coaching. The advancement of AI, the amount of technology that's out there. Where do you see coaching in, 10, 20 years' time?
Good question, man. I guess for hockey, we were talking the other day about what is the modern hockey player. And I was like, oh, good question. The answer we came up with, the modern hockey player is someone who can probably play any position.
Yep.
You could get a defender who could play striker. You get a striker who can play. They have all the skills. Now, we don't want to go too far past because we want our strikers to whatever finish. But I guess coaching in a way that develops like all players' skills, so they have everything.
Yeah.
You can send a centre back through and overlapping, and they can be in the circle, tommering the ball in the back corner. You can have a striker chasing back in the defensive circle and, making an elite, tackle or whatever. Like, I guess that from a player's perspective. From a coaching, all the use of AI, I guess we'll see, right? I don't know how that's going to change things. I know it's amazing the footage you get these days, like from a coaching perspective. Like, I used to watch the footage end on as a player, and that's it. Now, as a coach, I sometimes get 6 angles. Yeah. They give me GoPro, both ends looking at the circle. They give me side on wide, side on narrow. They give me close in. And sometimes, if it's really elite, you also get the drone.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, I've got 7 different angles I can, view stuff on and what you can present back to the group. They can see it clear as day.
Yep.
I've had footage of being a black stick one day, and it's filmed side on from from the fence. You can't see anything. You're like, what am I looking at here? But now you can literally just show everything and they can see everything. The flip side of that, and I say to the girls, is you can't hide, man. Like, if you don't do that chase back, I've got you on 6 cameras. We've got you,
Yeah.
So, in that respect, that's been a massive change. Obviously, the clips we can see directly, we can get all players' stuff back so quickly, see it straight away, analyse, debrief the game real quickly, which makes a massive difference. AI, it's a big beast, eh?
Yeah.
I wonder if coaches will be out of a job and you just be coached by AI, They'll just tell you what to do.
Yeah,
Based on that, here's the game plan, man.
Let's hope not, because I think one of the best things about coaching is that interaction with the players and the authenticity of the player-to-coach relationship.
And I guess another thing for the coaches out there, don't try to follow. Do your own style. If you want to play that way, just play that way and make it your way. You also kind of have to look at your group. Like, what has my group got? Oh, they've got massive endurance. Okay, press the hell out of teams.
Yes.
We don't have a lot of endurance, but we've got some speed. All right, sit back and counter, plan your team or your sessions around what you've got in your group and how you want to play. I guess that's probably one thing that some people get mixed up. I'll just play the same as that team's playing or that team's playing. Because often you'll see teams all playing the same way and there's, nothing will change. But it's always nice to see someone playing a little bit differently and trying to work out what the hell are they up to here. But
totally, yeah.
But they're all on the same page, and that's the most important part.
Yep.
If all the players are on the same page, it doesn't matter what you play, what structure you set up.
Yep.
Like, they're on the same page. But when there's a disconnect that some are thinking this, some then you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Then you're in trouble.
And I like that, because you're really thinking about a strength-based approach. What are we good at?
Yeah.
Let's just do that so well
that,
they actually have to think about the ways to deal with that. So
and we've got some speed in our group at the moment. I want to shift that endurance as well so we can do both. But we've got some speed on counter, and I want to utilise that back space where, if you do sit back a little bit, you've got some space to play. Which a lot of teams are doing anyway. It's not like a secret.
No, brilliant. You've obviously had a massive playing career. Hockey's been in your life. Well, you've been around the hockey pitch for a long time. Some influential coaches that have had an impact on you, and why did they have an influence on you?
So Dad was probably the first influence, right? Player, played for New Zealand, coach, coached me young. So he was probably the main one who got me into the game and, taught me all the tricks and all that stuff. But then you had Kevin Towns, who was probably he was my first. He was one of my first national coaches, not the first, but one of the first for an extended period of time. So he was really influential, and one of the things he was a really good mate, and still is. We live in the same area, so I see him often still to this day. But he was always really, really positive to me, like showing me the good stuff. My nickname around the hockey traps, everyone knows, is Boner, and he would say, Boner, yep, keep doing those things, keep doing things. You're good at those things. Keep finishing the ball. So he was always really good. Always kept me up.
Yeah,
kept me up and built me up, and that just builds confidence. You know, when your coach is giving you that, you just build confidence.
Totally.
When your coach is reaming you out, you just like, down in confidence. What does he know? So he was probably the most. Also had Shane McLeod as a coach, had Colin Batch as a coach.
Yep.
Had coaches in Europe, all different styles. Like Batchy, very obviously Australian, aggressive attacking mindset. Shane McLeod, very tactical.
Yep.
Yeah. Very tactical in how we were going to play. KT was he was probably in a bit of both, attacking mindset, but also very tactical. When I played in Holland for so long, my coaches were probably not as detailed as I've had from Shane McLeod, Batchy, and KT.
Yep.
They were massive on, and it's very Dutch and very Holland, and something I love, massive on just the basics.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Just doing the basics really well and really fast.
Yeah.
Trap it, move it on, shift it on, play fast,
Yep.
Back yourself in. So I really love that kind of style. If you watch them play, they are very simplistic in how they play. It looks great.
Yep.
And they've also always going to have a couple of bolters who are, high level technical, who can eliminate and have all these
show a bit of
jet
flair.
skills,
Yeah.
But then they just have their basics to a high level, and it's just trying to get our group to that. And it's always so hard to match them technically, right? The Dutch, right? It's so difficult. But the reason the Chinese women matched the Dutch and nearly stole that game from them in the Olympic final is they were physically fitter. That was their point of difference. They weren't technically better. There's no way they were technically better, but they were physically fitter, and that was their point of difference to try and knock them off, and they nearly did.
Yeah. Pretty phenomenal effort from Alison, eh?
It is. It is. And it's crazy to think they make the final eight. Any other tournament, if you look back on that, they only won 2 games in regulation, 1 game in a shootout, and they're in the final, right? Like they didn't win much. But what happened what was in their favour was the quarterfinal makeup.
Oh, who they struck.
They finished. I think they finished 4th.
Yep.
In their pool. My argument is, if you finish 4th in your pool, I'm sorry, you are done. Give the 2 teams who finished 1-2, they go through. They're the best teams.
Totally.
And then 4 comes in, knocks off Australia, who are ranked 1. Dodgy goal, should have been disallowed, wasn't, and Aussie get knocked out. They were going so good, Aussie, even though it's not a bad thing to see them get knocked out. It's always good, But so China finished 4 and end up in the it doesn't sit too well with me, to be fair. I don't think a 4th ranked team should go through. But if I look back on my playing days, I would have liked that to be in play.
Yeah,
because we often finish 3-4 in our pool.
Yep.
We're getting a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
A one-off match. Like, we can knock someone off.
Oh, totally. Back ourselves in a one-off game.
But if you have to be in 1-2 after consistent performance, that's tougher. But I think that's more earned to be in the goal in the middle matches.
Yeah. No. Totally.
Yeah.
No. Brilliant. Hey, look, I've really appreciated you coming in.
No worries,
it's been a great conversation. Even here, like, you see that passionate person coming out, the drive, the love of hockey. And I can see that even today, watching you, observing you on the hockey pitch. So, look, we're in a great space in the New Zealand Women's Program. You're doing a great job, and it's awesome that you can come out, allow access to our local community coaches. We had a good number down watching this early morning session today. So really, really thankful, super humbled with the opportunity to have you come into the podcast. So thank you so much.
Nah, thanks a lot. And final comment is there's some great talent out there, some great girls out there. We just got to back them in.
Yeah.
We just got to back them in, man.
Yeah.
Back them in.
Love it. So thank you everyone for listening to our broadcast today. I'm your host, Sanjay Gander. Today we had Phil Burrows coming in, the National Vantage BlackSticks head coach of the women's team. So look, really keen for you people to share this podcast out, give us a review, like it. And then look, any suggestions on potential guests we can get coming in. Obviously we're very new, but we want to get in front of as many coaches as possible, and we want to share these stories like we have done with Phil today. So thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with us. Thank you.